about how to take a journey.
Understanding ISO standards. All right, Bumi and Folashadi, are you guys there?
No, but I watched recording.
You watched the recording. Okay. All right. All right. Bumi, can you tell us what you got from that webinar? Just anything that comes to mind. Folashadi, others can hear me. Are you sure it's not your system? Bukumi and Bumi, you guys can see hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I
Are
can hear
you
you.
saying 30:3 initiative or which one?
No. We did understanding ISO standards, right? It's it's a webinar we did before the 30 initiative stuff.
Oh
So
yes, I watched the YouTube video. I watched the YouTube video. It was the one where you were talking about you were basically talking about standards. Where you gave example of what happened in which country where they didn't actually regulate their policy concerning a cash. Basically, I
oh,
watched it.
okay. All right. So if you have not watched those videos, right, let's go back to watch them because it's going to complement what we want to talk about today. Like I mentioned, today's training is going to be short, right? And people may join us by 2 p.m. and they won't reach us. They won't see anybody on the call by 2 p.m. So it's going to be very short, and then we want to look at something very, very important because I see a lot of implementers struggle with implementation of standard as 27,001, another relevant standard. And then when I know that there are things that they can do that they can use to improve their implementation, right? Instead of just struggling and suffering themselves. So let me share my slide. All right, today we want to look at the significance of guidelines. Please confirm you can see my screen.
I can see it. There's a guideline in ISO standards. I can see it.
All right, great. So we want to look at the significance of guidelines in ISO standards, and you know how wonderful it will be. Okay, now for those that have gone to study in the UK and other international other countries, sometimes they tell us, in fact, what do you want to set in the exam? They would have given it to you. Your own is you read, they want to test your knowledge, blah, 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 and the likes. Imagine how wonderful it will be, even though I know that some people will still fail. We know, right? Imagine how wonderful it will be if you are given questions and answers before you, let's say you started class, you started lecture today, and you have 3 months to write the exam. And then once you start the first class, they are giving you the questions that will come out in the exam and the marking guide. You know how wonderful that will be. Like, even though, as I mentioned, people will still fail. I remember one time that one lecturer mistakenly sent exam question to the group. We wanted to send us tutorial questions and sent exam questions to the group before he deleted it. Now sharp guys, we don't carry on. So I remember that I solved all of those questions, solved the easiest 5 because it's a 3-unit course, digital signal processing, very, very tough course in school then when I was in my HND. And I solved the easiest 5 out of the 7. Used it to do tutorial in the class. Guys, believe me, people still failed that exam. People failed, right? But what I'm trying to point out is ISO has a way of giving us the questions, which is, this is what we want you to do. Yeah, I'll just call that questions. And then they have a way of saying, okay, this is what we want you to do, but this is how you should do it. That's fantastic. All right. And I know that a lot of us do not really know about these things, right? We do not really know about how to do some of these things, how to get insight into, okay, how can I implement the 27,001 effectively? How can I implement the 22301 effectively? How can I do this? How can I do that? And I'll show you some. So this slide is very short slide, but then we'll just do some little practicals and then we'll look at them together. And then I'll show us, open our eyes to some things which you also can go to review. Right. So some of us, when we go to training, so when we read materials, we just read materials. We don't really look in depth into some of the materials, say, what is this thing saying? Right. These things, I did not get it from anybody. I've been learning it over the years. So I like to carefully, how I'm able to know how to implement and audit standards is because I read in between the lines, especially when I'm implementing for an organization. I'll look at what the process document is saying. Some of us just scan through this document, access control policy. Okay, by default, you think, okay, this is what access control policy is all about. And you just scan through and you just go, no. Read it line by line. You understand the process. So why I'm saying this is because I read materials line by line, training materials. And then inside of those training materials, you will see some things that you will not see outside. And I've gathered those things over the years, and it has helped in my implementation and my auditing of standards and relevant framework, right? Nobody will build a standard or build a framework that will not have a guideline. It may be hard for you to get the guideline. The guideline may be built by somebody else, maybe not the organization that developed the standard or the framework. But there will be a guideline for you. For instance, the new NDPA Act, right, which is that's tautology, Nigeria Data Protection Act that came out in 2023, signed into law by Tinubu, now has a guideline. That's a guideline. Open banking framework by the CBN. I think this was in the last reviewed one was in 2021 or 2022. As a guideline, the open banking framework is telling you an open banking customer, we call them AP and EU. API users, yes, because open banking speaks to APIs, specifically for APIs. So we have AP, we have AU. So it's talking about what API providers should do, API users should do. Then they now have a guideline that is telling you how you should do it. So in every standard that we have, there are guidelines. There are some standards that guidelines have not been developed for, but over time, the organizational body, right, they will develop these guidelines over time, and then it is your job to look out for those guidelines to support the implementation of what you are, of the standard, right, or the auditing of the standard you are currently working on. That is just to give us a brief into what we want to look about. Just like I mentioned, this is going to be a very short presentation, and then we'll look at some practical example of what I'm talking about. So my name is Kendi. To some of you know me. Some know me as Cyber Kadabra. My name is Kendi Ologun. I'm a senior consultant in a full-fledged cybersecurity GRC audit firm at SafeWorking. I currently manage the firm, carry out audits, focused on audits more than implementation. I don't really implement, but when it comes to implementation, the kind of things I implement are AML, open banking, COBITS, enterprise management, that's ISO 31000, right? So those are the kind of things that I implement for organization. For other ISO standards, just push it out to some other guys. Does not mean I don't take implementation jobs here in case you want to give me a job. But I'm actively implementing open banking, COBITS, and other relevant high-level standards, right, from the CBN and other frameworks. So I support the organization to carry out assessment. For instance, I've been assessing some organization in the past few weeks on open banking. CBN is currently on the neck of a lot of fintechs to ensure that they have open banking framework implemented. And I've supported some organizations to carry out assessments, Agile also to review their project methodology, COBITS, and a lot of other frameworks like that. I've implemented and audited over the years. In March 1st of this year, it's on Sunday, I'll be 4 years in cybersecurity and GRC, and I have relevant certifications also. Also a professional member of IC2. I'm a professional member of ISACA. I belong to a committee for certification in ISACA. I'm also a member in FinTech Nigeria. I'm part of a co-op committee also. I belong to Cision, right? I support the media director in Cision. And also belong to Forbes BLK, right? Which is Forbes Black Community. Yeah, so that's typically a few things about me, right? When we started, I asked if we have gone through the previous recordings or if you were part of the classes. So let me just do a quick recap. We looked at what GRC is all about. We looked at what ISO. So the first class that I did that I think opened the eyes of a lot of people is to look at what GRC is. And I think I'll just call one or two persons on the call. Let's see. Michelle Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Hello, Candy.
Yeah. So can you tell us, in your own understanding, what do you think GRC is all about?
Sorry if you might be getting some background noises. I'm in transit, but
No
in my
problem.
own understanding, GRC, as it implies, governance, risk, and compliance, has to do with checking that an organization, in terms of compliance, an organization complies with, they adhere to regulations and certain laws with respect standards. And for risk, it's about checking the possibilities and likelihoods of events occurring whereby there is a breach in due to non-compliance. Due to non-compliance, the possibilities of having some events occur. Then governance has to do with policies and the way an organization is being run.
All right. Thank you very much, Michelle. That makes a lot of sense. I have two more persons that I want to call. Oluwabumi, what's your understanding of ISO? What's your understanding of ISO?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
EIF, just like the thing, so we know that ISO is an international body that issues standards like best practices all over the world. Where different and practices all over the world, but ISO issues like a language or like a rule book that countries or companies in different countries can actually follow so that they are like on the same level. So a country here in Nigeria can even equally practice best or implement the systems that a company in Netherlands or even in Germany is also doing. So they issue best practices or standards all over the world, and especially where the law in that country doesn't speak about a particular concept or a particular topic. So ISO standard is like the free card or the jail free card out of those problems. I don't know if what I said.
All right. That's great. Now I have one more question before I move forward. Let me see. Patrick, Patrick, are you on the call?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm on the call.
Yeah, good afternoon. Okay. We can hardly hear you. Let me just call someone else. Bola Tito Ayomide. Bola Tito Ayomide.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. Bola Tito, can you tell us the relationship between GRC and ISO?
GRC and ISO. GRC is a
What's the
field in
relationship?
cybersecurity. Can you hear me?
You said what? I can hear you.
Yes. I said GRC is a field in cybersecurity that deals with the governance, ensuring the governance, the risk, and also the compliance in any organization. But ISO is a framework on its own that, will I say, dictates how organizations, the security controls, security guidelines the organization need to adopt or must adopt for their organization or in their organization to stay compliant, yes, to stay compliant with regulation and other laws. That's just
Okay. All right. So it's more like you define GRC and ISO. I still need somebody to tell us like the relationship, like they have a relationship, both of them. If you can tell us, okay, Bola Tito.
Okay. So I feel that the relationship is that they are interwoven and they work together. And what do I mean by working together is you have to follow what's it called? ISO standards. You have to is incorporated in the GRC field. So if an organization now, for example, is trying to structure their GRC process or trying to structure their culture, their organizational culture in the organization, they need to follow the ISO standard. So that's like the relationship, that's like the similarity. They are interconnected. So without adhering to this regulation, to this standard, you cannot say, okay, yes, we have done all what we are supposed to do. So that's why they are interwoven.
All right, thank you. I think I'll take that. So the relationship between GRC and ISO is that for you to have a good GRC framework within your organization, you need standards like ISO standards, not just ISO, right? I'm just using ISO because ISO is mostly known. So there are standards also like from NIST, there are other standards like CIS controls, there are other standards from, let's say, COBIT, like other controls that you can use to improve an organization's GRC. So ISO will help you, right? For instance, you want to improve your governance framework within your organization. We have ISO 30. We have ISO 38,000. I think ISO 38,000 is on corporate governance. Then 38,500 is on IT governance. You want to improve your information security framework within your organization to manage risk, to comply with relevant requirements, relevant control. You need ISO 27,001, or you need the NIST framework. Do you see? So there is that relationship between them. And ISO is a body. They provide standards, right? ISO do not certify organizations, so there are certification bodies that do all of those jobs. Right. So that's just to give us a recap of some of the things we've done, we've talked about before. Now, so let's go to clarity of the concepts, clarity of what guidelines are, right? Standards tell you what to do. Guidelines explain how to do it properly. When we started, remember when I mentioned that there are some schools out of the country, you know, it is in our own part of the world that the lecturer will tell you x plus 1 equals to 3. Find x. It is easy. You just move 1. You move it to where 3 is, right? And then you minus 1 from 3. And then you get your answer, right? But when they now want to set the exam, you now see x plus y squared minus z raised to power 3 equals to, you now start scattering your head. But in other part of the world, they may give you, like, they just want to test your understanding. They may give you the questions, they may give you the answers, right? And that is what guidelines are. So guidelines are more like the standards have been developed. This is what we want you to do. We want you to write A. That is the standard. As let's say for ISO 27001, ISO 27001 is telling you write A. Then ISO 27002 or 27003 is telling you this is how to write A. See that you want to write capital letter, or you want to write small letter, you scribble this way, you scribble that way, and then that's what guidelines, that's what it does. Let's look at what I have on the screen. As 27001 says, implement access control. Just go straight to the point. It will tell you implement access control, this, provide rules for blah 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 for registration, duration. That is it. Then the guideline that has been developed to support you in the implementation or auditing of that standard will tell you how to either implement it or how to audit it. So there's 27,001 guideline will tell you what you should provide in terms of access control, will tell you to develop a topic-specific policy, tell you who should have access to that policy, tell you how the access should be reviewed, tell you the kind of tools you can use, how to document it, and a lot of other things. So standards are the rules, guidelines are the instruction manuals. So it's just like when I got some things in my house, I got some things in my apartment, and then they come with manuals, tell you this is how you can fix this thing, put this like this, add this like this, add that like this, turn this way, turn that. Those are the instruction manual that tells you how to implement the standard. And it will make your life easy, because sometimes I see where people make mistakes, right, during implementation. Okay, for instance, I audited a fintech, I think about 3 years ago. And then they excluded the control. Remember, you can exclude controls in your annex control. That's in 27,001. You can exclude controls that are not applicable to you. And then one of the fintech excluded the control that speaks, it was 27,001 2013 version at that time, excluded the control that speaks to security of assets off premise. Now, when they excluded the control, clause 6.1.3 says you should have appropriate justification for exclusion and appropriate justification for inclusion of the control. So the justification for excluding that control, then they said because they do not have any assets that is off premise. And I said that's wrong. Because what that control is saying, there are controls that are preventive and they are proactive. They are not reactive control that you do it when there is an issue. There are controls that prevent you, and then they are proactive. They get you ready. What that control is saying is that have a process in place to get ready when you need to move an asset off your premise. For instance, let's say your CCTV camera is faulty. It is not the day that CCTV camera is faulty and then somebody needs to move the CCTV camera away that you now start implementing that control on security of assets off premise. Or let's say a monitor or the CPU is bad and they need to move that CPU. Remember, you have your hard drive on that CPU, right? On the unit, right, itself. So they need to move that, and you know that you have an hard drive there, right, or a hard drive there. If you do not have control that speaks to security of assets off premise before that time, is it that day that they want to move that device out that you now want to start implementing that control? So if you had gone through guidelines, the guideline would have told you, let you know that this control is a preventive control. It's not a control that you do when you want to make corrections. It's a preventive control. It's a control that will get you ready, do this, and it will give you more insights. So a lot of people make mistakes in implementations because they refuse to go through guidelines. And these guidelines are readily available to us. So when I see people struggle in implementation, I'm like, guy, you have this thing now, just go through this thing. Sometimes I use these guidelines to audit organization because the guidelines contain a lot of things that you can have insights to, and it can support your implementation. So some of the documents I'll share on this call, you can have access to them, right? I will collect everybody's email on this call, and these are the set of people that I will only send the materials I will share on this call to. Others that did not join but registered, I only send the recording to them so they can watch the recording at a later time, right? So let's move forward. Why ISO guidelines exist and the problem they solve. So people misinterpret standards, and that is why we have guidelines. People misinterpret standards, just like I gave an explanation, right? To say, oh, you see where people will think this standard is saying this thing, whereas the standard is saying something else, right? So guidelines help to give you clear implementation, support clear implementation, open your eyes to what the standard is actually saying. So controls are implemented wrongly. Also, during implementation, audits fail. People fail audits because they don't have understanding of what the standard is saying. Compliance becomes confusing. Processes becomes weak. because of lack of understanding of what the standard is saying. But when you go through guidelines that are there to support your implementation or your auditing as an auditor, you have clear implementation, you have less confusion, you have better audit outcomes, you have stronger governance, and you have reduced risk. Right. So the guidelines are there to just tell you that, you know what, guy, take this part or take that part, follow this process, follow this, provide this policy, provide this process document, do this, do that, cover this, cover that. Right. So that's what guidelines are going to do to you. So standards are auditable by certification body. You as an organization can be certified to a standard, but you cannot be certified to a guideline. Even though we call guideline standards also. Yes, we have seen cases where they say it's 27,002 standard, 27,003 standard. They are all standards, but guidelines do not contain requirements. So standards that do not contain requirements are guidelines. Standards that contain requirements are, we call them requirements. Yeah, we just call them requirements. And so requirements means you must do them, but in guidelines, you are not bound to do it that way, but they are just telling you how you can do it. And in standards that contains requirements, you will see words like shall, which means you shall do them if you are claiming conformity to that standard. And then in guidelines, you will see word like should, which shows suggestion to say, oh, you can do it this way or do it any other way, but ensure that you follow what the standard is saying. Right. So I'll just quickly give us what we've looked at this before now, but I'll just quickly show us what the typical structure of major standards look like in ISO standard. So you will see from scope to terms and definition. So these three are the introductory parts. They are not requirements. They just contain like introduction, tell you the people that develop the standard, blah, 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 and other things. Then the actual requirement starts from clauses 4 to 10. Those are the requirements. Context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, continual improvement. But there are some other standards that have a little difference. For instance, ISO 27001 has what we call annex control. Annex controls. ISO 9001, 22301, they only have management clauses, which is from clauses 4 to clause 10. Right. So let me open our eyes to what standards and guidelines are. Right. Let me share the whole of my screen so that please confirm you can see the whole of my screen. Okay, great. All right. So let me go to the desktop. Okay. We have standards. All right. So let's start with 27,001 because a lot of us are familiar with 27,001. Now, 27,001. For 27,000, let me see if I can make this bigger. See if I can. Can we see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay. I'm trying to change this view to large icons. Extra large. And let me just use large. Okay, let me see. Let me use large. Okay, so 27,001. The previous version was 2013. The current version that we are using is 2022. Right, so we have ISO 27,001, 2022. Let me look for where we have the 27,001. So this is the 27,001 standard, 2022. So can you see, who can read what we have here? This that I'm highlighted here.
Information security, cyber security, and privacy protection, information security management systems requirements.
Requirements, you can see. This is the 27,001 2022 standard. This is a requirement. It contains requirement. It means you are bound to do it if you claim conformity to it. Now let me go to clause 4. So these first 3 words that are highlighted, right? Somebody should read it to us.
The organization shall.
You can see the word there. Shall. And this word shall means it is something. If someone tells you you shall do this, the person is not giving you any option. It is saying if you are claiming conformance to what I am saying, you must do it this way. So if you look through this standard from the management clauses up to the annex control, you can see. Look at control 5.19. It says process and procedure shall. 5.18. Access right to information, blah blah blah. Others, I said shall. You shall do it. That is the requirement of the standard. This is a requirement, right? This is a requirement, right? And you must do it. Now let's look at, so this is, now let's take, okay, let's use access control 5.15, right? Let a guy read this control to us. 5.15.
Rules to control physical and logical access to information and other associated assets shall be established and implemented based on business and information security requirements.
You can see this control. Straightforward. This is what we want you to do. But there are lots of things that are inside of this control that you have to do. And a lot of people can make mistake in ensuring that they put rules in place to control physical and logical access. I audited an organization a few weeks ago, and part of what I did during their physical security audit was to audit the physical access control to see that the people that have left the organization, if they have been deregistered, the card, the access, the thumb, and every other thing that they use to get into the organization have been deregistered. Some people may not know. They may think, oh, just put policy in place to say, okay, this policy, this and that, but there are other things that you need to learn. That is 5.15. This is a standard. This is a requirement, right? Which is the ISO 27001 standard. Now, let me take us to what a guideline looks like. So each standard, most times, look at this. Look at the number 27001, 2022. If you are going to see a guideline for that standard, sometimes it will either be 27002 or 27003. Look at the document I'm opening up, 27002. So this one is for annex controls. Remember, we have 2 parts in 27001. We have the management clauses, we have the annex controls. So this guideline is only for annex control, those 93 controls that we have in the ISO 27001. You will not see management clauses here. So, and remember what I told you. You can see this is ISO 27002. This is a guideline. Remember what I told you, that in standard, in requirement, you will see shall, which is what we saw in 27001. But in guideline, you are going to see what? Can someone remind me?
Should,
which is, it is suggesting that you should do it, just do it this way, or do it any other way, but ensure that you fulfill the requirement of the standard. Now let me go to that same 5.5. What was that access control? 5.15. Yeah, great. 5.15. Now let's go to 5.15. So you can see a document that is even more than the old standard, and it's only speaking to the access control. Why? Because it contains guidelines that will support your implementation. Now, what that person read the other time is just this. So look at this place that I highlighted. That is everything you have in 27001 standard. But look at other things that you have in 27002. You have the control type. This is telling you this is a preventive control. This is telling you that this preventive control is applicable to confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. This is telling you from the NIST point of view, cybersecurity concept, this is protecting you as an organization. It's preventing issues from happening. And then the operational capability, it says identity and access management, speaking to identity and access management, and then it protects the organization. Now, you can see how, now look at what these people have coined this control to. They've changed the word from shall to what should. And then everything you will see, if you come down to the guidance, owners of information and other assets should, it is telling you, do it this way. But I can tell you for free, there are lots of things you can get from this document. It will tell you the purpose. This is a guideline that will support all of those things that is giving you in your implementation. See, owners of information and other assets should determine information. It is telling you the things you should do. Look at the next thing after this full stop. Somebody should read this highlighted part for me.
A topic-specific policy on access control should be defined, which takes account of the requirements and should be communicated to all relevant interested parties.
Can you see? It is now telling you. That's what I just told you. Rules to control physical and blah, 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 blah. It did not tell you to draft a policy. This one is now telling you, draft a policy first. After drafting that policy, communicate it to everybody. Right? It is not telling you that that policy should consider the type of access, the security of the application, the physical assets which needs to be supported by appropriate physical entry control, the information dissemination and authorization, the kind of classification you have. It is even giving you the other controls that you can get Q from. You can see it's telling you 5.10, 5.12, telling you about restrictions. It should also consider segregation of duties, relevant. These are things that can support a good access control process within an organization. Right? It goes on to give you other information. Access control rules should be defined by blah, blah, blah. A lot of other information. You can see more information. This one is telling you identity management from user registration to the registration. It is now telling you that every identity should be linked to a single person so that you are not going to have group identities in the organization. Right? You are not going to have group identities to say, okay, let's say for instance now, 3 of us on this call, we are sharing one identity. If there is a breach to the organization through that identity, they will not know who to hold because 3 of us can deny. And then they cannot say it is also a person that logged in. It's also a person. I can say it is not me, even though it is me. The other person can say it is not me. The third person will say it is not me. And I'll keep denying. But if it is linked to a single person, no repudiation, you cannot say you are not the one that did it. Why? Because it is a specific identity. And that's why emails all over the world, no 2 persons can use one email. 1 person to 1 email, except the other person now shares the email with another person. So this guideline will tell you things you need to do, how you need to do them. Now, this is 27,002. Let me show you something else. There is another guideline for management clauses. That's 27,003. Where is that document? This is 27,001. 7,032, 17,5, 32, 6,001, 2013, 27. Okay, this is 27,003. Now, this one is 2013 version. Who can tell me why they did not choose to update this document from 27,003, 2013 to 2022? I want somebody that can think deeply.
Perhaps nothing has really changed about this guidance.
Somebody's raising their hands. I can't see the screen. Let me come back to. Yeah, that's part of it. Bolatito.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, so for ISO standards, I think the designated year for any updates or for any change is 3 years interval. So when the last one, which is 2013, so they'll have to update it in the next is it 3 years or 5 years? I don't know. It's just like the year. There is a particular year that has been set aside. Yes.
Okay, so it's 5 years, but I will go with the first answer. The first answer is very correct. The reason why we have updated 27,001, 27,002, because we also have 27,002, 2013 version. But the reason why we updated 2022 is because a lot of things changed in the 2013 version to 2022. In 2013, ISO 27001, we have 14 domains, 114 controls, 35 control objectives. But in 2022 standard of 27001, we don't have control objectives anymore. We only have 93 controls and 4 domains. We call them themes: operational controls, people control, physical security control, and technological controls. So that is why we now need a 27002 2022 because of that change in structure. But in 27001 2013 and 27001 2022, the management clauses did not really change. They just only added one clause to clause 5. No, it's not clause 5, clause 6.3, planning, clause 6.3. So nothing really changed again, planning for the ISMS. So that's why there is really no need to update this document. They may update it, but there's really no need. Nothing really changed. So if you go to 27001, the management clauses, let's look at it. You will see shall, you can see. Now let's look at clause 5.2. Look at clause 5.2, 5.2a to G. The standard is straightforward. You shall do this, you shall do that. But in 27003, we now have a guideline, right? We have a guideline. If you go to that same 5.2 in 27003, see what you are going to see there, right? More than, okay, this is 5. You can see 5.2. Look at required activity, top management established an information authority policy. Then there is an explanation of what it is talking about. Then there's a guideline as to how to implement it, how to communicate it, when you should communicate it, who you are communicating it to, and there are other additional information. You can see. So a guideline that will help you implement the management clauses of the 27001, which is 27003, another guideline that will help you implement the management clauses of the 27001 annex control, which is 27002. So this is to open our eyes to the importance of guidelines and tell us, see, guys, there are other things that you can read up on that will support your implementation and give you more knowledge, right? For the implementation. So let me use ISO 31000 for those that are familiar with risk management framework. So you see this 31000, this is the risk management framework, right? So now this one again, you cannot be certified to this because it's also a guideline for risk management. Now, this guideline will not really tell you deep what you need to do. Imagine there's a guideline that has a guideline also. So this guideline is looking like a requirement. It will not really tell you deep down what you need to do. It will just tell you, okay, it will tell you what to do, but not deep down, not how to really do it. And then we now have another guideline, 31004. This one, you can see. This one says guidance for the implementation. If you now want to implement that 31000 guideline for risk management, this is guidance for implementation. And then you have a document that is telling you how to implement 31000. And it goes on like that. If you look at your business continuity management system as 22301, there is a guideline, 223, I think 22313 is the guideline for implementation. For ISO 20000, we have 20002. That's service management system. For ISO 9001, there are guidelines that will support you in the implementation of those things. So if you're finding it confusing, right, to implement relevant standards within the organization, go online and search. So what I used to do is I'll just come here, I can say, I can say document, right, let me use for some things. I can say documents to guide the implementation of the ISO 27001. Right. So you can see, let's see if we can get something here. right? Or let's say, okay, hey, look at this place now. Look at what AI is giving us. It says implementation guides and resources. What do we have here? ISO 27002 2022. So if you Google, you will see the standard, you will see the guideline that can support that implementation, right? And then you can now go further to say, oh, ISO 27002 guideline. I just prompt anything because you can say PDF free. Yeah, you see these high-tech standards. These guys they usually drop. Okay, this one is not complete. This one is 15 pages. So sometimes they will just drop something that is not complete. So let's look at this one. So this one is how many pages? Okay, you can see this one is 128 pages. And then you can download it. This is a guideline. This is a document available for you for free, right? And you can download it. If you scroll down, you will see everything, right? Everything. And I think this one is speaking to, okay, this one is for 2013. So this is 2013 structure, Annex A, human resource security. So, okay, you can see this is 2013 structure. So you can still keep checking, right? Keep checking, and you see 2022, right? You see the 2022 structure, and you can download it. So that is how you look for guidelines to support your implementation during your implementation, right? And then it will support you. So this one, I think this one is built by an organization, not by ISO itself. So there are some that are developed by other people, not by ISO itself. But if you keep searching, right, you will see relevant standards that can support, that can guide you, and then we clear your doubts, right, during implementation and sometimes. So that's typically what I want to open our eyes to, right? So that I will share 27,002, 27,003 with us, 27,001 also. Let me see. And okay, I'll share as 31,000 and 31,004 also with us. And that is for those that joined this call. So for those that joined this call, please drop your email now in the chat box so that I can keep all of the emails, and then I can share everything that I have on the call with you today. So if you have questions, I'll take the questions before we call it a day. So questions. Yeah, Oluwabumi.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for this eye-opening session. I have a question, just like to get clarification on something. So usually when we see the ISO standards like online, or maybe we see certifications, so they say ISO 9001, that's like QMS, then 27,001. Is it safe to say that they are like a family series? So the code with one is the standard itself, and those other ones that follow it, like 27,002, 27,003, are guidelines or vocabularies to implement that one.
Yeah, very correct. So for instance, 27,001, that one is the requirement. 27,022,301, that's one is the requirement for the implementation of business continuity management system. 9,001, that one is the requirement for implementation of quality management system. 20,001, that one is the requirement for the implementation of service management system. So they also have a structure. So, and these are the things that I think implementers and GRC professionals need to know. Just like this question you asked, we need to be able to also understand that structure. And that's what made me go out to look for more documents to support my implementation and auditing, right? So, and then any other thing that now follows, it's either their guidelines, or maybe their vocabulary for terminologies, or maybe their other standards that are specific to some industry. For instance, we have a standard, I think 27,010 or something, that is information security for telecommunication. I think we have 27,011 or something that is information security for health domain. So we can now have multiple like that. So we have 27,001, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 is 4 will teach you how to implement clause 9.1. Imagine having a full standard that is teaching you how to implement just one part of the 27,001 standard. So 27,004, I will share that with us also. 27,004 will teach you how to implement clause 9.1. Clause 9.1. A lot of organizations are implementing clause 9.1. That's monetary measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Implementing it in a wrong way. Like 27,004 will open your eyes, and that's what makes you better. Do you understand? Because when you look for some of these documents, you read them, you are able to serve your organization better than others. Some people are okay with where they are. Like, oh, the surface implementation I can do, let me just do and go. No. If you want to be better, you need to study. This field, you go read, you go study, you go read. I just printed the material. That material now is no more than 3,000 pages, and I have to read it because I'm getting ready for a professional exam. A friend of mine came in few weeks ago. The guy saw him and said, you go read all of this one. I go read them now because I need to read it. Apart from reading it to pass, I need to also read it to be better in the field. Do you understand? And that is why, not to boast, but I have CISOs of organizations. They call me at different intervals. Kenny Alpha, we are going through so and so. Can you support us? Can you advise on this? Can you give us? And because they know that you have, to some extent, wealth of knowledge. So how do you get this knowledge? I did not get this knowledge by somebody sat me down and was explaining everything to me. No. 90% of the time I studied on my own, not even training. I studied. I even ate trainings. Most times, okay, now let me tell us, 80% of the exams I wrote, I did self-study. I don't like joining classes for trainings, especially international trainings where white people need to come and train us, because most times I can't hear what they are saying. So I will just join for attendance, but I'm not really focused. Sometimes I might be in another audit, right? But then I have to do self-study to study. So those numbers, that's one is the requirement. Every other thing that follows is either the vocabulary, maybe the guideline, or that specific to some specific industries, right? And that's a very good question. Yeah. Any other question? Do I have real projects? You see that project stuff? I have a lot of people that want to do projects, right? So sometimes we usually have projects and we bring people on the call we bring people to do them, right? But most times it is people that do paid training. You understand? People that have paid training. But we are trying to build something. I know it's going to be very hard, but we are trying to build something that you can act as a simulation, right? If I see anybody build it in the field, we are one in this field. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's tough to build it because you need to know it to be able to build it. I've seen a lot of compliance tool and a lot of these, they don't have depth. It's just surface. It's just manual that they put into a system. But if you want to really know this thing and you want to be hot cake, you need to read in depth. Read in depth. It's just that I don't have time. If I have time, like I have 6 months that I'm not really doing much, and I can focus on building that stuff, I'll build it for this industry and I'll push it out for free for people. So that once you go for trainings, it will act as a simulation. You can carry out actual implementation, actual audits, and a lot of other things. All right. Yeah. So that's that about project. Most times people that come for paid trainings are we shuffle in projects like that, right? Because projects can be very confidential and you don't just have everybody on the projects, right? So please let's have our emails before we end the call, so that I can share with people that are on this call. Any other question before we call it a day? Another question? Okay. So my assumption is that the class is very clear, and we have gained something. So let me just ask two persons to tell us what they've learned. Abib, we have Abib A on the call. Abib A, tell us, what's your take home? Abib is not on this call. He's not on this call. And he did not drop his email. So which shows that he's not on the call. So whether you even joined the call or you're not listening, it's your loss. So let me call Damian Oguche. Damian dropped email. So Damian, what's your take home?
Good afternoon, Mr. Kende.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's actually I open up to me a lot of insights. Well, from I had network issues from the beginning, but along the line, our T was able to grab some stuff from your explanation. Today, I got to know that there is difference between the requirements and the guidelines. You made it a lot clearer to me, especially for now. To be honest, I am ISMS. I've gotten the ISMS certification from best standard and best practice. But to be honest, that's the lead implementer. But to be honest, I passed it, but I can't say I can really implement. Sure, that's even actually what I wanted to ask before my network came back. You know, some of us have passed these examinations, but can we even really implement it? You know, so we just pass. How do we practicalize what we've learned in some of these exams that we've written? You know, so today I got to understand the difference between guidelines, and the requirements. But the deal is that now that I'm ISMS certified, how can I implement? It's okay, they really need you to help me there. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, number one, there are training institutes and there are training institutes. So, and I know that one day if they call me to come and speak outside, maybe in a conference, I know that some people some companies will beat me because a lot of things I will say will indict a lot of companies, right? Because standard and best practice, I think I just went, sometimes I just go through some of the curriculum to see how in-depth they are, right? If I audit an organization, the first year, if you I lead implementer and all you provide is certification from standard and best practice, I'll give it as an observation. But then I will expect that you pursue more. If you do training with PECB, you have PECB material. Their materials are one of the most complete materials in the world. If you read PECB material alone, you are going to see a lot of things that you have not heard or seen before, right? The same thing with TV and other certification body like that. And then another thing is, it is now dependent on the trainer too that wants to train you. So why I can do self-study now is because I have knowledge in a lot of things around, even though I'm still learning, right? But I've gotten, there are some exams that I will never read for them, never. I wrote, I think 7 to 9 exams last year. The one I read for was, I think, 2, COBIT. Yeah, I read for COBIT. Apart from COBIT, I'm not sure I read for any other exam because I don't think there's anything they want to set that I can't pick the scenario in my head. But I still read the materials. Not like I don't read, because I don't really have time. I just go to write the exam, then I read the material later when I have the time. So some trainings may not have depth and some will. Sometimes it's dependent on the trainer also, right? It's dependent on the trainer. Sometimes when I see some people, I've trained an organization before. In fact, it is one of the big fours in the telecom industry, right? I trained them, and after the training, they were like, "Do you know that we've gone for this training somewhere else before?" but we do not, nobody understands Jackson. They all failed the exam. Like they did the training. A lot of them failed the exam and they did not understand Jack. So they told them, there is one training institute, there's a guy, the guy is good, blah, blah, blah. And they came and I trained them. After every training that I do, I usually do revision. And then they came back, the week that we're supposed to have the revision, they all joined the call. And I was saying, okay, let's start with questions. Which questions do you have? You're like, we don't have any questions. We just came to greet you. We understand the training. So the way some of us take trainings, a lot of these people, they've not audited, they've not implemented before. They just maybe passed one exam and they became trainer. There's no way they will give you value because training is beyond reading book. It is now left for you to now sit yourself and really say, okay, this thing you want to make, because some of the trainings, you understand. So, but then we are all trying in this field to, get a better life. To some organizations that are doing this training, but you yourself, you need to go out to learn. Then to answer your question, if you see projects, there are people you can follow. We have okay, I can't say you are a guy, but for cyber girls and the likes, UAT, Confidence TV and co, some of them, they have opportunities that you can volunteer and then do some of these things for free. Sometimes they may give you stipend, do them for free. So when you are doing those things, it opens your mind to, this thing that I studied, so this is what this thing is saying. This thing is this thing is that. That is it. Do you get? So you can look out online, see organizations also, right? Reach out to them. Oh, I want to serve as an intern. If I don't pay me, imagine you telling the company not to pay you, that you just want to serve as an intern, support this, support that for the next 6 months. Some of them will be scared of, this one, it's like this one wants to come and steal our documents here or something. And some of them will give you that access, and then you go there, you learn, right? So for some of us on this call also, I have mails. If I have opportunities, I think I'll just keep this mail and reach out to us. I hope we'll be checking them. If I have opportunities also, I can push it to us that, okay, you know what, join this opportunity, learn from this, learn from that, right? So because GRC is not like hacking that you have TryHackMe, you have this, you have simulations and the likes. And that's why I'm thinking of building something also. I'm taking over the years, but I'm a very busy person. Like I'm a very, 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 very busy person. So once we can build that stuff, to be easy, everybody will. So you finish a training, you can go to that simulation, you do implementation, you can go to the simulation, do auditing, and then it opens your mind, right, to how better you can become, right? Yeah. So I hope that that solves that. Let me see if nobody has dropped any other. After Damian and Asma, do we have any other email? We have emails. So let me quickly copy it. COBIT. COBIT is control objective. It's developed by ISACA. It was previously for IT audit. Yes, it was previously for IT audit, but now it is used for IT governance. IT governance. I and T. When I say IT, I'm not talking of IT department though. I and T, information and technology. Everything that concerns information technology within an organization. Whether it is the drivers that are using information technology, whether you have drivers in your company that are using IT for their processes, whether you have cleaners, whether you have the HR department, as long as anybody using IT in your company, COBIT is speaking to them. I&T, governance of information and technology, not IT departments. So we have difference between IT, information technology departments, and I&T, information and technology, which comprise of everybody using IT. So that's what COBIT is for. It's IT governance framework. The exam is very tough, crazy. It's very tough. In fact, when I finish it, before I say what is on my mind, I'll just stop this recording. Let me keep these emails first. Okay. Let me stop recording.